Welcome to GFN Gaming. I'm Russ, and in today's game, we're fighting for the right to be the mostest chaosed as the Legionaries take on my blooded kill team, the Catachan Jungle Blooded, patent pending. We're using the Critical Ops mission cards and TAC Ops in today's game. We drew up Mission A, which is Loot, and the Sector Deployment. Here's the deployment, and the mission allows for one mission action, which is called Loot. For one action point, an operative can perform this while it controls an objective that hasn't been looted already in that turn, and each objective can be looted a maximum of 3 times during the battle, and you gain 1 victory point each time a friendly operative performs the loot action. We're also going to be using the new scouting phase that the Critical Ops pack brought in. So Fortify now allows for a barricade to be set up on a vantage point, Infiltrate remains the same, and for Recon now, the operative dashing does so as if it can fly. We're not going to be using any extended terrain rules today, and it's a very heavy board setout. So here are the light terrain pieces, here are the heavy terrain pieces, and here are the vantage points. Before we go into the teams, the models that I've used for my blooded team are actually a Space Nam set from Wargames Atlantic. I've put them together with some extra bits from my bits box, and it's a great alternative kit to the G-Dubs Catachan one. Let's have a look at them. Hailing from the Imperial Death World of Catachan, a kill team of Catachan Jungle Blooded. Each operative tried and tested against the aggressive flora and fauna of this most infamous of planets. Favoured holiday destination of only the most criminally insane. Leading the squad is my traitor chieftain armed with the plasma pistol and improvised blades, and he also has wicked blades for +1 to his normal damage. My personal favourite is the traitor thug, armed with a heavy club and with his 4+ save and his tough ability reducing normal damage by 1, he should hopefully stick around. He is also equipped with armour plates. Next up is the Trench Sweeper. I'm not totally convinced with this guy, so he might get swapped out for someone else, so he's armed with a shotgun, a bayonet and shield. The shielding ability is interesting, but it's not something I've been able to utilise fully yet. Maybe this time. A staple in most teams is the Commsman. Pretty standard with the classic +1 AP, but in those 2 APL teams he can be key. He's armed with a lasgun and a bayonet, so I don't imagine he's going to be claiming any kills today against that power armour. Next up is the Corpseman. This boy has more juice in his jugs than the Liver King ever did in his prime, and he's not natty. No one that gets near him will ever be either, as he pumps them full of the good stuff, but this guy is thematically awesome to play, and he also has armour plates. I've heard tell that this guy is the weakest marksman with only mortal wounds 1, but with silent and the absence of heavy, this is a very tricky problem for your opponent to get rid of. He's the weakest sniper, true, but he's the most versatile and maneuverable also. I'm loading up on gunners today. I have a plasma gunner and a melter gunner as well. You can take 2 out of a possible 4, and I do have them all built, so I'll try them all, but I think these 2 pack the biggest punches against the Legionaries. The plasma gunner will also have armor plates. Oh baby, it's the Brimstone Grenadier. He is a monster, or at least potentially. Under the gaze of the gods, that one-time use diabolic bomb can really pump out the mayhem. He's also got the last of my armor plates. My all-time favourite model from the kit is my Butcher. Armed with a power weapon and cleaver, I decided last minute to use this guy instead of the Flenser. Hopefully he'll get into combat, although against a Legionary that's not altogether a smart idea for a mere mortal. Padding out the secondary force, I'm taking 2 standard troopers with lasguns and bayonets. One of these guys is also going to have wicked blades to up his normal damage by 1. So, of course, I took the traitor Ogryn. Yes, I did. This is probably very stupid as he's a massive target, but he's cool. Enough said, right? He will also be getting the pre-game stim, giving him a 6+ feel no pain from the Corpseman. And that's the team. Let's have a look at the Nurgle Legionaries. Coming in hot and ready to pop are the blistery boggins of Nurgle, the Legionaries. It's a pretty strong team, and leading said strong team is a Legionary Chosen, armed with Plasma Pistol and Demon Blade, giving him wound regen whenever he hits with a crit in combat. Next up, we have the Balefire Acolyte, whose Fire Blast is going to give me and my list of many low wound models heart palpitations. It's a great choice doling out buffs and damage hither and thither. It's the classic model. Up next will be the always iconically kill team, Plasma Gunner. He's been loaded up with the Malefic Blade as well to give him some meat in close combat. Perhaps the most flavorful of the legionary operatives for me, and the most useless in terms of the mission sometimes, is the Anointed. Going Berserk does limit his usefulness, but he's a great vehicle for holding objectives with his Feel No Pain, and he's no slouch in combat if you have some killy tac ops. Heavy gunner time, and I generally prefer the missile launcher, however my opponent opted for the heavy bolter today, probably because it's the only one painted in the same scheme, and that's how we roll. Armed with a heavy bolter and will be equipped with the Heavy Man Move Faster power legs. Everyone's favourite, the Shrive Talon. Where was Chaos before this dude turned up? Voted most likely to kill you horribly, but then make balloon animals from your intestinal tract to entertain your grieving family. He will be armed with a frag grenade and aggressive stimulants. Cause God knows without them he's just a happy little bunny. Those are the teams, so let's move into the first initiative phase. Blooded win the role and choose to be the defender, picking this deployment zone, and then the barricades are placed. With the new change to deployment, teams are now split into 3 equal groups and deployment is alternated, starting with the defender. So here's that process. I'm not sure how I feel about the change. When I first heard about this, I had hoped that we would get some narrative missions where random groups would be deployed in different areas in later turns, more akin to Warcry, but so far there isn't the case. This does add some time to deployment, but should hopefully reduce the amount of feel-bad deployment blunders, in theory. During an exploratory mission into an uncharted region of Catachan, a kill team of jungle fighters uncovers a long-since abandoned factotum. Chaos sigils now mar the once pure machines. Fresh sigils. As they investigate the site, the stench of death and decay floods their senses, and they are forced back as billowing swarms of flies descend into the clearing. Walking from the miasma of fetulence to the thrum of 1,000 tiny wings, a kill team of legionaries, each blessed by Nurgle's touch. Battle commences. Due to the update from the Critical Ops pack, both teams will now start with 3 CP and then get a CP each strategy phase, so we're up to 4 as we move into the first strategy phase. Using the new Critical Ops pack, we now select our TAC Ops, and I've opted for Eliminate Guards, Rob and Ransack, and Assassinate Target. My opponent chooses Security to test out the new ones and takes Central Control, Protect Assets, and Secure Central Line. When Assassinate Target is taken, it's immediately revealed and my opponent chooses the target that I need to assassinate, and he picks the Anointed. Challenge accepted. I'm holding on to my CP, but my opponent plays Mutagenic Flesh for free, reducing all normal damage by 1, but not implacable just yet. With that done, we'll move into the first firefight phase. Both players took Infiltrate, and as a reminder, the Ogryn has been given the pre-game stim for a 6+ Feel No Pain, and my first Blooded token goes to the Plasma Gunner. Let's begin. The Anointed moves onto the objective, loots for 1 victory point, and then dashes into cover, all whilst remaining in Conceal. I activate my Commsman and give +1 action point to a trooper, and then I move forward behind this rock, grabbing some cover. I was worried about poor deployment and blast, and with an evil laugh, my opponent uses Infiltrate to change his Balefire Acolyte to engage and makes his move. Able to move and dash to get clear line of sight onto the Corpseman, he can hit all 4 targets in the group. Yikes. He gets a crit, so everyone gets a mortal wound, including the Ogryn, who fails his Feel No Pain. So he has 2 hits and a crit on the Corpseman, who manages to make a save and rerolls the one with armor plates, getting a crit, so remarkably only suffers 4 damage in total for the hit and splash. On to the Grenadier, and it's an amazingly great roll for me. Just 1 hit and my opponent uses a reroll and gets the classic. Misses again. I do still fail all of my armor saves, needing 5s, and I do get a reroll for the 1 for armor plates. However, the classics are classics for a reason, so I'm also taking just 4 damage. But with that crit on the Trench Reaper, it goes up to 5 for the Grenadier and Corpseman, and 2 wounds off the Ogryn, who once again fails his Feel No Pain. Wild dice missed the tray, but I end up making 2 crit saves with the Trench Reaper, so all he takes are 2 wounds from Splash as we move on to the Ogryn, and I'm feeling remarkably smug. No crits, which is amazing. 3 hits go through and I save 1, so it's 6 wounds and I save 1 of those, taking 7 damage total with the Ogryn, leaving him with 9, but no one's dead. This was a huge deployment blunder for me. If the dice were even slightly more average, I'd probably be down 2 or 3 models here and the game would be very much over. As it is, I survive and I activate my Corpseman immediately, and I jab the Grenadier, healing him 2d3 wounds, bringing him back to almost full health. I then dart forward onto the objective. Always playing the mission, my opponent activates the Chosen in Conceal, moves him onto the objective, loots for 1 victory point, and passes, remaining hidden. I suddenly realized I haven't scored yet, so I activate my 3 APL trooper and move him onto the objective ahead of him. I really miss 3 APL models when I'm not using them, but having a comms operative to boost occasional ones does give me that sweet feeling again, so I loot the objective for 1 victory point and use the extra action point to dash into cover. I make a bit of a blunder here because I forget their GA2, so I would have moved this guy onto this objective and looted it, but instead we pass back the activation because I'm a dirty cheat. The Shrive Talon moves forward onto this objective, looting it for 1 victory point, and then makes a daring move forward, still in conceal and has got a bit of cover. It's time to get thumping. I yell clobbering time and charge in with my Ogryn into the Balefire Acolyte, aware that Overwatch might be coming up soon and I need to get rid of him before that happens. I'm almost immediately regretting my decision as Avalanche of Muscle only gives me 1 mortal wound and then we roll our attack dice. I hit 3 times with the Ogryn but no crits, and Captain Lungrot Vapestar gets a crit and 3 hits, so immediately does 2 mortal wounds, doubling my Avalanche of Muscle result like some sort of sassy and I use a reroll, getting 1 more hit. I fail both Feel No Pains, I parry, my opponent parries, I then hit for 5 down to 4 damage with Mutagenic Flesh, my opponent parries with their last normal and uses the crit to inflict 4 damage, which I save none with my 6+ stim Feel No Pain, and the combat is over. The Ogryn really needs crits. With 1 crit you get 2, assuming you hit with at least 1 more, which means you are hitting and parrying at the same time, but without crits he's a little underwhelming in combat, especially against Astartes. With Infiltrate already used, the Plasma Gunner just moves forward staying in conceal, and I move my leader next to my marksman, grabbing some cover. It's a reserved move for the Heavy Gunner who just dashes forward, staying in cover. It's back to me and I finally make my GA2 move, putting this trooper on the objective and scoring a victory point. My healed Grenadier makes it to the objective and looted for another victory point. A move and a dash with the Thug brings him onto that left flank. The Trench Sweeper just makes a small movement behind some cover. I don't want to go too far forward with the Butcher, so he just moves back out of Shrive Talon charge range as my Melter Gunner moves forward next to the Commsman and my Marksman climbs up to the vantage point. I used my Infiltrate on the Ogryn, so the Plasma Gunner just moves back out of Shrive Talon charge range. There was only 1 tac op in play this turn, which was Assassinate, and obviously the target still lives. Let's have a look at what happened in turn 1. The Legionaries have been a bit reserved, although they have a big move forward with a Shrive Talon, so he might be looking to break my lines turn 2. I've been a bit more cagey after just surviving that blast, so I'm looking for a good turn 2 where I can get rid of at least 1 model and maybe score 3 or 4 objectives to finally take the lead. Blooded feel like turn 3 heroes to me, where I should have Gaze of the Gods so I can really guarantee some heavy damage, so cagey first 2 turns and then I strike. We're into turn 2 and the initiative phase, and the Blooded win the roll-off, so I'm going to choose to take the first turn because I have the chance to pump out some damage. We're moving into the strategy phase and both players will get a capsized pineapple.
Oh shit, it's happening. Honey, get the coconut oil and cancel our dinner plans.
I'm going first and I'm playing Glory Kill so I can reroll in combat or shooting, and I'm choosing the Balefire Acolyte so I can get rid of him. My opponent then reliably uses Mutagenic Flesh for free and I'm done for strat, so it's back to him and he's going to play Implacable, meaning none of his models count as injured, they ignore negative APL mods, and their ballistic skill doesn't go down for Overwatch. Over to Tac Ops and I'm going to play Eliminate Guards, and my only option this turn is the Chosen Legionary, so I pick him. My opponent then Tac Ops all over the place, playing all of his cards in one go. Well Here's the central control and the central line that he has to hold, so looks like I'm going to have to move him as we move into the turn 2 firefight phase. I get a Blooded token every initiative phase and I'm going to use this on my Grenadier, so he's going to get a Blooded token. Time for the Corpse Man to do what he does, and he's going to move next to the Ogryn and stick him with some stims to heal him 2d3 wounds, because he's in a big fight with the Balefire Acolyte, gonna need them wounds. Ends up getting 5 on the 2d3, which brings him back up to 10 wounds, and he's no longer injured. Opting to heal first instead of fighting does mean I'm gonna get punished now as the Balefire Acolyte activates, still thinking he can take the Ogryn out. 5 dice hitting on 3s, and that's 4 hits but no crits, lucky for me. I get 2 crits and 2 misses, but I can re-roll one with Glory Kill, and obviously it's still a miss. Because I have all crits, my opponent can't parry me, so he's going to have to strike, dealing 3 wounds, and I get my Feel No Pain, making 1 of them. This is where the Ogryn shines. Because my crits have stun, it means when I strike I deal 6 damage, and I also remove a normal success from my opponent's dice pool, which makes the Ogryn a real combat survivor. With no other options, the Balefire Acolyte strikes for 3 damage, all of which go through, and then my last crit kills him. Victory for the Ogryn, but he is back down to 5 wounds. The first time you kill an enemy operative in a turn, you get a blooded token, and I'm also going to play reward earned, giving me another one, so my blooded pool goes to 2 with that 1 kill, and I'm going to play Rob and Ransack on the Ogryn with the hopes that he can survive, but I'm going to get that 1 VP straight away. So with that, I managed to just take the lead with 4 victory points, and then I activate my Brimstone Grenadier, who loots the objective for another victory point before dashing away behind this rock. Incensed to action, the Chosen Legionary activates this objective for a victory point, and then charges into my Commsman. With his demon blade held aloft in the commotion, he doesn't realize he's charging right towards a melter gun. How delicious. After some stray dice are reclaimed from the floor, the Chosen ends up with 3 hits, which is more than enough to kill the Commsman, and the Commsman ends up with just the 2. However, my opponent wants to one-shot me without taking damage, so uses a reroll, but it fails like a soggy, wet, nurgly fart. I get all but killed with the first strike, but manage to club the Chosen for a measly 3 damage before the Commsman is dispatched with great vigor. It's bittersweet, my Commsman is dead, but the Chosen is now within easy striking distance of the Melter Gunner, although he does hit on 4s, so nothing is guaranteed. I also get 1 blooded token added to my pool, and my Marksman slinks forward in conceal to fire on the Plasma Gunner. He's very maneuverable without the heavy keyword, but he hits on 3s not 2s and is only dishing out 1 mortal wound on a crit, and I only get 2 normal hits. The Plasma Gunner takes a save and makes another 2. Refocusing on the mission now, and the Heavy Gunner activates, moves to this objective, loots for 1 victory point, and dashes into cover, remaining in engage just in case of Overwatch. Slipping into conceal and trying to hide him away, my injured Ogryn moves forward. In a sly move, the Plasma Gunner moves forward onto the central line and within objective range loots for 1 victory point and then targets my Trooper, no need to overcharge. For the Plasma, it's 4 dice looking for 3 ups, and it's a shocking roll. 1 won't kill the Trooper, so another reroll is used, and it's 2 hits. AP 1, so I have 2 dice to save, and I fail both. It's not really worth a reroll to me, so I'm just going to let him go. To me, a dead basic trooper is that operative fulfilling its potential. He died so others might yet live. His buddy basic trooper activates next and loots the objective for 1 victory point and then passes. The Shrive Talon does an about face, dashing back to loot the objective for a victory point before making a full move back towards its deployment zone. Still pressing forward, the Thug makes a move and dash to follow the Ogryn. With a bestial howl, the Anointed goes full demon and races forward into the center of the board, grabbing some cover. It has to happen now before he gets a chance to Overwatch. It's time to make a dude smoothie with the Melter Gun. 4 dice looking for 4 ups, and it's a glorious roll. I get 2 crits and a hit, so that's 8 mortal wounds right off the bat. At AP 2, there is no reason at all that loneliest little defense die should get rolled, but he does. And the dice guards kick him when he's down. My laugh is audible from space, so the legends tell. With that kill, I will also get 1 victory point for eliminate guards, as if you recall that was my target for this turn. And with that, he's just going to shuffle forward before we're on to Overwatch, looking at the Shrive Talon. Because of the way he's been placed, he has line of sight and was within range, so he's going to shoot. Again, implacable means this is on 3s. Overwatch with the Bolter, and that's 3 hits. I've got a 5-up save with the Ogryn, and I only make 1. Now, I could do a reroll here looking for 5+, however what I do is instead roll 6+, feel no pains looking for 2 6s, get 1, and then use a reroll on a 6+ instead of a 5+, and fail, ironically getting a 5+, which would have saved my armor save. As this is worth another victory point for Rob and Ransack, I really should have played that smarter. So my Ogryn is dead due to my own stupidity, and it's back to me, so I move my Trench Sweeper onto the objective in conceal, and then it's time for some cheese. So, I move my Plasma Gunner here and target the Legionary Gunner, but I make sure that return cover lines will cross this piece of heavy terrain that I'm 2 inches away from at the point at which they cross, meaning I'm obscured. So, we have some non-reciprocal shooting going down. We laugh, we cry, and then I shoot. I'm not overcharging because I'm currently safe from return fire, and with my blooded token I auto-retain a hit and roll the rest, getting 2 more crits, which is just beautiful. My opponent rolls a crit and a normal save, so with Disgusting Vigor that becomes 2 crit saves, leaving just 5 damage down to 4 with Mutagenic Flesh going through. And that is why I normally play as Legionaries. So it was a nice setup getting to shoot and avoid return fire, but after all that trouble, Nurgle's tough little ways managed to foil my plans and he lives. I'm still nervous with my Butcher and there's a lot of open ground, so I shuffle and then activate my leader and race forward with his plasma pistol, looking to end the Legionary gunner. This guy's hitting on 3s with his plasma pistol and you better believe he's gonna overcharge it. Gets 3 hits with AP2, so only 1 save, and it's failed, so that is a dead Legionary gunner. Even with mutagenic flesh, you would have needed 2 saves on 1 defense die, so getting 3 hits pretty much sealed the deal. And with that shot, we mark the end of turn 2. Let's have a look at the TAC Ops. It's been a pretty decent turn for the Legionaries. The Anointed is single-handedly claiming central control and secure central line, getting 2 victory points for them, taking their total up to 9. No other TAC Ops being scored at the end of the turn, so let's have a recap of turn 2. Still playing relatively cagey with the Blooded, however a few losses on both sides, 3 dead for the Blooded and 2 for the Legionaries, which is great for me and my hopes of having a very strong turn 3 with the Blooded. I'm behind in the score, but this should really be my turn to rack up the points whilst doing a lot of damage. Let's get into turn 3. Into the turn 3 initiative phase, and I win the roll off again, which kind of feels unfair 2 turns in a row, but I'm still going to take it because I'm not a saint. Into the strategy phase, both players get a command point. I think I'm going to keep my command points ready for any kind of TAC Ops or reroll so I don't play anything, and my opponent uses a command point for mutagenic flesh, having to pay for the first time, ha ha ha, and pays another command point again for implacable because it is really good. All the TAC Ops have been declared, but for eliminate guards, this target is my target, and that's it. So we'll move into the turn 3 firefight phase, and it's time for the Blooded to put the work in. My Blooded pool doth overfloweth with 4, so I give the Trench Sweeper, Melter Gunner, Butcher, and other Trooper a token, and I move the Gaze of the Gods onto the Brimstone Grenadier. I have the first activation, and this guy has one more job to do before he can die. The Plasma Gunner moves forward to get line of sight on the Anointed, overcharges, and fires. Because of his Blooded token, I'm going to auto-retain a normal hit and roll the other 3. I get a hit and a crit, and I know it's going to take a lot to kill the Anointed, so I re-roll it, trying to get another one, but I fail, so that's just going to be 2 hits and a crit. The Anointed fails a save, uses a reroll and fails it again, but we didn't capture it, so it's on to the Feel No Pains. Out of 14 wounds, the Anointed makes 6 saves, so it's alive, but down to 4 wounds remaining. It's a close one. He's my assassinate target, so if I can kill him, that's 2 victory points, so I need him dead. The Heavy Gunner loots the objective for 1 victory point and then charges into the leader, choosing to pass not fight, remaining on the central line and holding that objective. I activate this Blooded Trooper and claim the objective and pass, and then it's back to my opponent, who activates the Shrive Talon, racing forward to throw a frag grenade. Blast has been a little bit of a blind spot for me in this game, and once again he's going to hit multiple targets, first against the Thug. Gets 2 crits and a hit, and I get a 4+ save, but I forget this thinking it's a standard 5+, so I only record the 1 save, so I take 6 damage, down to 1 wound remaining, as we move on to the Corpseman. The frag grenade gets 3 hits on the Corpseman, and it's time for the defense roll, and none are made, so that's going to be 6 damage going through, and it's enough to kill the already injured Corpseman. Narratively, I love the Corpseman, so it's a shame he's gone, but with like 7 wounds each, I guess, I anticipate most of these chumps will die at some point. Time to get rid of the Anointed and get some victory points. I move the Brimstone Grenadier within range of the Anointed and throw his Diabolic Grenade. Under the Gaze of the Gods, I can auto-retain a crit, and with Splash 2, that means he will automatically take 2 wounds. He fails his Feel No Pain, and then I roll the rest of my dice, getting another crit, so inflicting another 2 mortal wounds. He makes both his Feel No Pain, so our cat and mouse game continues. He gets 3 saves, so with Disgusting Vigor that bumps 1 to a crit, which parries a crit and a normal save, leaving a crit hit going through for 3 damage, and he fails 2 Feel No Pain, so it finally takes him out of action, and I get 2 victory points for Assassinate Target. With that kill, I obviously get the 2 victory points, tying up the scores at 10 apiece, and now it's back to my opponent, who's going to shoot in Overwatch with the Shrive Talon. Targeting the 1 wound remaining Thug, this is all but a sure thing, so let's move quickly through this shooting. It's not a great roll, it's a crit and a hit, and then I roll my dice, getting a crit. So it's worth it for a reroll to try and get a 4+, so I use a command reroll, but unfortunately I don't make it, so the thug is dead and I don't capture the roll. One of my favourite models, and he did very little in this game, which is a shame, and now he's no longer part of it. Not a lot of objectives scored so far, so I activate my Trench Sweeper, loot this objective for a victory point, and then dash away. My Butcher finally makes a move and races onto this objective, unable to score it this turn but ready for next turn, and my Marksman jumps down and loots this objective whilst they control it. Looking to cement my lead, the Melter Gunner moves to this objective and the central line and loots for another victory point. And then finally my leader disengages and moves forward. Outnumbered on the central line and no operatives in the central area, it's no victory points for the Legionaries at the end of the turn. Let's have a look at what happened. I had a great turn 3, I maxed one of my TAC ops and I scored a healthy amount on the mission objectives, so I go into the final turn with a 3-point lead. With only 2 operatives left for the Legionaries, it's not looking great. We're in the final turn's initiative phase, and finally, when it no longer matters, the Legionaries win the initiative by drawing. For the final time, we move into a strategy phase and both players will get a command point, bringing them both up to 1, and let's have a look at what they do. Starting with the Nurgle Legionaries, and they're going to pay a command point for mutagenic flesh, looking to stay alive as much as they can. I debated using Glory Kill, but in the end I chose not to spend anything, and this is my target for Eliminate Guards. Nothing else gets declared in the final strategy phase, so we move straight into the firefight phase. I've amassed 3 blooded tokens, so basically everyone now has one, my last 3 going on the Trench Sweeper, Marksman and Leader, with the Melter having the gaze of the gods now. Looking to do as much damage before the game ends now, the Heavy Gunner targets the Grenadier and shoots with his Heavy Bolter because he knows I like that model. Only gets 3 hits and no crits, so it's no P1, and I make 2 saves, so he's going to take 4 damage, but he will live. Not much else he can do, so the Heavy Gunner then moves into the central control area and the central line and just hopes to live. I activate the Butcher, he loots the objective for a victory point and then also moves into the central area out of line of sight of the Heavy Gunner. On a mission now, it seems, just to kill the Grenadier, the Shrive Talon races forward and fires into his back with his bolt pistol. This is all happening because I said he was my favourite. It's finally a good roll for the Legionaries, and with that, I do roll my defense, but he finally kills the Grenadier. But the joke's on him because the Butcher or the Thug is really my favorite. Anyway, it's back to me and I activate the Marksman. He stays in conceal and he's going to shoot the Heavy Gunner and duck behind this little barricade. The Heavy Gunner's got full wounds, so I'm really not anticipating a lot of damage going through, but let's see. It's a good roll, I get a crit and 2 hits, but my opponent makes all his saves, so just the mortal wound goes through. After his shooting attack, the Marksman's just going to duck behind this barricade in conceal. We don't have the dice rolls for this, but the Shrive Talon shoots in Overwatch and manages to take out the Plasma Gunner. And then because of my lead and the time, my last 3 operatives just pass. This does mean that the Legionaries get 2 victory points for central line and central control, which is very possible I could have denied, but the game was pretty much over anyway. So in the end, despite maxing out 2 TAC ops, the Blooded win with a total score of 14 victory points to the Legionaries' 12. If you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching, and a huge thanks to my patrons who make it possible to do all these videos. Please consider supporting the channel on Patreon, and thank you so much for watching. Bye, and I'll see you in the next video.